So it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So now
Where
you're,
are
I'm in New York. I'm in Washington Heights.
mm-hmm. How are
You haven't
things in
been to,
Washington Heights?
you haven't been, what?
How are things in Washington Heights?
It's raining. It's
Well,
raining.
it's raining here too.
I guess it's good for nature to be raining, but
It's
I'm
very
not,
good.
I'm not
It's
used
really
to it.
good.
I'm not used to having to like bring an umbrella, or I guess I have to get used to that again. Damn it.
Well, I mean, you don't have to use an umbrella.
But I often don't, especially if it's not raining too hard. Anyway, actually, I have to do a job interview later today on
Uh-huh.
Zoom. So this should probably be a quick visit because I still am whenever I meet new people for films, I do some research, obviously, other works they've done and so forth.
Right.
I also
Wait, which side of the interview are you on? Are you hiring or are you being hired?
being hired, hopefully.
Oh,
I'm actually up for two projects at the moment. Um, we'll see
is your
which
schedule
either
clearing
go.
up a little?
Kind of, I'm uh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's funny I say that, but I'm editing a very, very low budget gay romance, gay love story. I mean, I guess it's
All love stories are gay. They're right.
yeah. Well, this one is very gay.
Hmm.
Um with a young new director, and it's a very low budget. It's kind of like back to my roots, my real
That
roots, like just very small film, but really nicely done, and I'm having a good time with it. So
that's good. That's nice to be able to do
that's
that.
that's my current project. But it's only for a little while. I decided to share with another editor, an up and coming editor I've been trying to help, and I thought I would do the assembly on the film and sort of get it in rough shape, and then turn it over to someone
Right.
else who can actually afford to work longer than I can for the small amount of money that they have. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I've done this before where I've had an assistant assemble and then I come on later, especially if I
Right.
have overlapping projects. And that's so I sort of proposed the alternative with these guys. They didn't have much
That's
money, but I liked the script and I thought it would be fun to work on. So I'm doing it.
well, and if that weren't enough, you also are essentially programming this editing series, this ACE series at the Metrograph, right?
Right. Basically, Joseph Krings, who's another editor, friend, colleague of mine, Joe and myself, we're members of the American Cinema Editors, ACE, and a few years ago we started a New York committee that has about 15 ACE members on it. There's probably about 200 ACE members in New York, maybe 150. There's probably 2,000 if you include LA and London and so forth. And it's an honorary association of editors, yeah, who've achieved a certain amount in their career. So we uh, we were discouraged a few years ago when the Oscars, the Academy Awards, decided not to present certain so-called key creatives in the ceremony. They took the cinematographers off the broadcast, the editors, production designers, uh, which seemed to us very disrespectful. And we felt that we could perhaps do something to try to educate the public as to what editors do. And we came up with this idea of a screening series of showing a movie. Initially, I think we were thinking of every other month, like 6 times a year. And Joe and I approached the Metrograph because that was our one of our favorite places to go to see movies, and that was our first choice. And if Metrograph had turned us down, we would have, gone on to other theaters, tried them next. But Metrograph, it took them a few months to sort of commit. This was 2 years ago, I guess 2022. But eventually they did, and They have taken the lead in terms of the
Mhm.
actual programming of the films for the most part. I wouldn't say what Joe and I have done is really programming, although we'll often give them a list of 40 films that we think they might want to consider doing that where the editors are in the New York area so that they can come. We don't have any budget, so we can't fly people in from LA or London. We can only have people appear if they're in the city already. Um, but we have a lot of great editors here in New York, so
Yeah, of course.
we so they but it's been a little back and forth in terms of how the films get selected. As I say, it's mostly Metrograph, but we'll nudge them in a certain way. Like the first thing they asked for was they wanted to do the right thing with Barry Alexander Brown or Fantastic Mr. Fox with Andrew Weissblum. And Barry is an old friend of mine. Barry actually was the sound editor on a documentary I produced back in 1985. So he was
Wow.
actually a sound editor before he became a picture editor, and he's since became a picture editor. Has cut a huge number of Spike Lee's films. Not all of them. Sam Pollard has also done
Sam Pollard,
quite a
sure,
few.
regular guest on this
I'm sure you've
podcast
had him, and
many, many times.
I actually think I'm going to try to encourage more of the editors we've had and in New York to come visit your show because I
I
think
would
you'll
love
find
that.
it interesting. So
I would
anyway,
love that.
Barry was out of town. He was in Europe, but Andy was up for it, and he did the first one. I moderated the first one, so it was
Right.
myself and Andy, and Andy was leaving for Toronto the next day to promote The Whale.
Hmm.
The two directors he works with the most are Darren
Darren
Aronofsky,
Aronofsky, obviously.
and he also works a great deal with Wes Anderson. So, two amazing people to work with, and two very different. So he that was great, and but what was interesting with the Metrograph is that even after they agreed to the series, initially they said to us, "Now you'll probably want to have your editor introduce the film, say a few words about the process or the film, but that's basically it, right?" And we said we actually wanted to do it the other way around, have a full Q&A at the end for like 20 minutes, half an hour, take questions from the audience. And uh, although Metrograph was being super supportive, there was a little bit of a feeling like, well, would that maybe be a little too in the weeds, too granular? Is the
Yeah.
so-called general public really going to be
Right.
interested in that? And uh, it hasn't been a problem at all. I mean, every time we have these Q&As, it's like when they're over at half an hour, whatever, there's definitely more questions that the audience have. So one thing we started doing right away is they have a bar, a lobby bar. So the basic format is show the movie, the editor comes on with a moderator, sometimes two moderators, or sometimes it's two editors. Moderator will lead a discussion for about 20 minutes, and then we'll take questions from the audience. And then we go into the lobby and get drinks. So, in fact, for me, the whole lobby part is one of the most important parts of the night because what happens is you have general public, people who are not in the industry, who are interested. You have experienced editors from our community. You have assistant editors. You have people who are aspiring to edit. So you have people at all different levels communing with each other. And that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
um, the other thing is, the way our industry works, if you achieve a certain amount of recognition in your field, like you join ACE or you join the Academy, for instance, which is even harder to get into. I was fortunate to get in 4 years ago to the Academy. Once you're in these organizations, you get invited to these kind of screenings with Q&As all the time, especially all fall, from September to December, there's all kinds of events with people. But for people coming up in the industry, assistant editors or people who want to edit or general public, they don't have access to these events in the same way. So although, we call it ACE Presents, but it's for the general public. It's just literally the cost of a movie ticket. And I'd have to say I would encourage your listeners to join Metrograph even if they don't live in the city, if they live in California, or if they live upstate, like where you are, it's a $50 a year membership. And then when you do come to see movies, it's $10 instead of 17. But even if you're not in the city all the time, it comes with a great streaming site, which has all kinds of experimental avant-garde foreign films, interviews with people. It's kind of like a supplement to the Criterion Collection. Like,
Hmm.
and I mean, it's a great value, and it's like all streaming services, the material refreshes. Films leave it, new films come on. So, I mean, I, I guess what I'd like to say is like I can tell you a little bit about how the last 2 years have gone with us and projected to next year, but we don't really have a mailing list. The best way for people to find out about these events is to check the Metrograph site. They Because they consider us a series, Ace Presents, they'll sometimes list us under series. But if people just bounce around the calendar, we're always on Fridays or Saturdays.
Hmm.
Most recently, we've been mostly Saturdays. We found that a Saturday screening around 5:30 or 6 works really well. We initially were doing them more on Fridays around 7ish, and people would come after work, and both of those worked. We did the Andy Weisblum one, and then Metrograph said we'd like to do a holiday film of some sort next. We didn't do anything in October. At this point, we were thinking like every other month we'd do it. And we thought, among our New York community, not too many of us have edited Christmas movies or Hanukkah movies. It's just like it's not really what most of us do. I'm sure some of us have, but I think Joe came up with the idea, or maybe it was Metrograph, of the Ice Storm, Ang Lee's film The Ice Storm, which is Thanksgiving and so forth. And Tim Squires is an old friend of mine. He's cut pretty much all the Ang Lee films, except for
Wow.
Ang took a break from his usual people when he did Brokeback Mountain.
Hmm.
And that one was actually Dylan Tickner, who we ended up having just this year. Uh, but we brought Tim in, and Tim was phenomenal. He's a great educator. You'd love him on the show if he hasn't been on.
No, he hasn't.
I should give you a whole list of people
You could. Sure. I would
because
love that,
and I'll do
Michael.
that. I'll do that later by email.
Okay.
I'll connect you with some people, and
That'd be great.
they can come on.
You're always like, let's take a moment and just look back and, you did that from the beginning, almost from the time we met, what, 10 years ago or something. You were always, I mean, it's not like when you're in the momentum of your work, you don't think about it. But when you and I connect, which is pretty regularly, you would always be inspired with, you've always been great about feeding, you know, potential guests or opportunities. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Well, thank you. I mean,
You
it's
just the gesture of it and that you believe in it is nice.
well, it's all about a community. We have our own editing community, and we'd like to share our resources with the world, share
Does
our resources with other people who maybe want to do what we want to do, or just interested in filmmaking in general, or
does
film.
um does ACE itself, the organization, have a newsletter?
Ace does, and we do a lot of promotion for the series through
That's what I
Ace.
was going to ask
For
next.
instance,
Okay.
a typical thing we'll do is, okay, so we've got Ice Storm say scheduled, not this year, but when we had it 2 years ago. There's a wonderful woman and the Ace is based in Los Angeles, and there's a wonderful woman there named Lucy who does all their graphics and also runs the newsletter. So I'll
Right.
contact Lucy and I'll say, well, we're going to have Tim Squires doing Ice Storm on such and such a day, but Metrograph hasn't put the tickets on sale yet. They generally don't put them on sale until about 2 weeks ahead, maybe three. But we want to make sure people hold November 20th or something, and we want to send something out, say in October. So she makes a beautiful graphic, which usually comes back to me 5 minutes after I've written her. She's found a poster, she's done a whole design. It says featuring Tim Squires. If we've got the moderator, it'll be listed. She writes a whole little description of the film. And then we send it out. We say, save the date. And then once tickets go on sale, we send it again. She also
Hmm.
puts it in the newsletter. Like people get ACE members get an email, they get the newsletter. Now, for people who are not an ACE, I put it up on Facebook. I put it on other Facebook groups, uh, film fan groups. Some of them are editing groups, and other people in our organization promote it in their own way. And we actually have sold out almost every show we've done. We've either sold out or come really, really close. So after that first fall, which was just the two films, Joe and I thought we would like to try to be a little more proactive with Metrograph in terms of suggesting content. So it's not just Metrograph saying, let's do these films. We'd like to make it a little more balanced if we could.
Hmm.
And I had this idea. Again, I guess as you can tell, part of my idea is to try to demystify the process of going to festivals, make the concept of festivals less elite. I'll give you an example. Sundance, most people who love film in New York, unless they're in the industry, have actually never been to the Sundance Film Festival. They've heard about it, they read about it in the New York Times, they see the films when they come out later in the year, but they don't actually have the experience of going to Park City and being in the snow, waiting in line, and seeing these movies. I mean, Sundance is open to everybody, but it's expensive, and it usually the people who spend the money to go, such as myself, will go when we have a film there.
Hmm.
I wouldn't normally go to Sundance if I didn't have a film there. It's just too expensive a proposition. But if I got a film that I want to help promote or help be a part of, I'll try. I always will do that and have done it so many times. I've been lucky. So I thought, well, January is when Sundance happens, and so why don't we suggest to this was now just I guess in 2023, the beginning of that year. What if for January and February we have some Sundance classics, we'll call them, or just Sundance films that have made a bit of a splash over the last 10 or 15 years, and we're also we try really hard to deal with issues such as representation. In our own editing industry, women are underrepresented. You would think in like the union and ACE, it would be like sort of a 50-50 split, but it's not. It's like maybe one third are women in both organizations. I mean, I don't know if that statistic is totally accurate, but it's underrepresented in terms of the population. People of color, it's like it's like shockingly low. Like the number of African Americans in our industry, Asian uh, descent, it's kind of appalling. So, we'd had our first two events. Andy Weisblum, Tim Squires, both very distinguished middle-aged men, white men, and so we suggested a bunch of Sundance films, and the two we wanted to go with initially were The Witch with Louise Ford, uh, who is my former assistant, but Louise Ford coming in, and we wanted to do You Can Count on Me, Kenny Lonergan's film with Anne McCabe, and they were Metrograph thought that was a great idea. So in fact, The Witch did become our third show. Uh, Lou Ford, of course, cut uh, Lou. Well, most of us call her Lou, but her professional name is Louise Ford. She cut The Witch. She cut Robert Eggers' short films before that, including
Hmm.
The Telltale Heart. She then went on to do The Lighthouse with him, The Northman, and she has Nosferatu coming out
Nosferatu, which is coming out. Yeah.
Christmas Day, which I've seen twice in the last week, including
Oh,
last
you
night,
have?
and it's absolutely phenomenal,
Is it
phenomenal,
really?
absolutely phenomenal, and it's just going to be a great movie for people on Christmas. And if people want to go see it, they should be buying their tickets now. Christmas, it's already selling out in many cases, which is
Hmm.
kind of insane. Um, Listen, I just have to check something on my computer because it seems not to be having power,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's
Mine
going.
is getting a little low, but we
But
have.
let me just see what's happening. Why that's
Yeah.
I'll be back with you in just a sec.
Let me pause. Yeah, yeah, now I am.
Okay.
Yeah, because
So,
I didn't have it the power plug in either, and
oh,
but I underestimate how much we like catching up.
well, yeah, I didn't know I'd want to chat so much, but I guess I am enjoying it as long as you put up with me. Well, it's probably helps to talk about what we've done in the past because I think it gives an indication of where we're heading in the future with this
Right,
series.
right.
So Lou came with The Witch, and for that one we had this wonderful moderator, Karen Coleman. She'd be a great guest. She runs an organization called the Future of Film is Female, Karen Coleman, and she helps program films at the Museum of Modern Art. And she was our moderator with Lou, and she's absolutely fantastic.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, I
So
love all these
we'll connect you with
opportunities.
Karen. She's great, and then in February, Anne McCabe wasn't able to do You Can Count on Me. She was too busy with work, and but we only found that out about 2 weeks before the event, and at that point we thought, well, should we just like not have a February one? Well, they'd already blocked out the evening for us.
Yeah,
So I proposed myself, and I said, here's four films that I think you might like. They were all at Sundance: White Girl, 9 Days, The Farewell, and not sure if I remember the fourth. But anyway, they wanted to do The Farewell.
yeah.
So that was the fourth one. So I got to be the guest on our fourth event, and I was able to find one of our former assistants on the film who had been at NYU at the time, Denise Zhao, came in and moderated. I felt it would be good to have someone of Chinese ancestry,
Asian American. Yeah.
Asian American, to be the moderator. Again, we try just not to have the same standard white faces, white.
Yeah, no, I mean you have to be intentional about these things.
You kind of you do, and if you're I think that's an important thing for all arts organizations to be cognizant of, and most are to a certain degree these days. And some, of course, have definitive guidelines,
Right.
diversity, equity, and
Yeah.
inclusion guidelines.
Yeah.
We don't really have that within our at least within the New York Committee, as far as I know. But I think we all are trying our best to give a more full expression of the kind of talent that we have. So after that, then a next thing that happened, which turned out to be very lucky for us and is going to sort of become a recurring feature in the series every year, is Bobby O'Sheen had approached us. And Bobby is this great educator. If you remember, you and I did a podcast with Molly and Bobby O'Sheen, and her, who was married to Sam Osteen, a great editor, cut most of the Mike Nichols films and a number of Roman Polanski. And Bobby's written a number of books about film editing, filmmaking, about her late husband's work, and she has a daughter, Molly, who's in the education business too. And they proposed that they do an event with The Graduate. So I think that became our March event, and as I said, they've all been selling out, but there was something really special about that one
Yeah.
because the film is so much fun, and they are Molly and Bobby are great, and they're sort of a great mama daughter team. They
Yes.
kind of remind me of Joan and Melissa Rivers in a bit. I mean, they're very funny, and we realized right away that we should have them every year with a film,
Oh wow.
and they're up for it. So I think that's so. That first year, we showed a few other films. We had Moon Age Daydream. I think it was either that year or the year after.
That's the Bowie
The Bowie film, and we were
yeah.
supposed to be, that was the only time we didn't have a guest. Brett Morgan, who directed the film, was also a writer on it and cut it himself.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's why we were going to have him, but that was the very beginning of the Writers Guild strike. And because
Oh,
he's in the WGA, he said he couldn't do it. So we still
right.
showed the film because it was booked, but no guest. And
There's a guy I really would like to get on here too.
we could probably arrange that. We'll try
Yeah.
to help you if we could.
Thanks.
That we also showed All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. The great film about Nan Golden that was out a couple years ago, and that film was cut by two or three credited editors and a few additional editors. And
Huh.
we managed to get Amy Foote on, who was one of the main editors, moderated by Joe Krings, who was the co-creator of the series with me. But Joe had actually been an additional editor on it. So we had two people working on the project. And we've been trying to get more documentaries in, and also awards contender movies, or movies that might have been up for awards or have won awards. Just recent films and older films. It's really a whole mixture, to be
Right.
honest. And then we came into, I guess, we're currently in what I call our third season. Yeah, I've started to think of it in terms of an academic school year that goes from September to June. So we're in our third one now, but in our second one, we decided to start off with Julia Block, great editor. She was not actually an ACE yet at the time. Not all our guests are in ACE, but she is a member of ACE now. And she'd cut the film Blue Ruin and also
Mm-hmm.
Green Room for Jeremy Saulnier. So we actually had a double feature that night. We did Blue Ruin, she did her talk, and then we had Green Room. Not Some people watched Green Room, and some people went into the lobby bar and talked with Julia. So do it, do whatever you want. And that was the beginning of our second year. We had Tim Squires back because, well, you see, the great thing about Metrograph is they've always got a number of different series going on, the crisscross. And they were doing a series of films starring Nick Nolte.
Mm.
And Nick Nolte happened to be in The Hulk. And they said, well, we're showing The Hulk, and we know Tim cut that. Do you think Tim would like to come in and do that? And he did, and it was a great evening. They were also doing a series honoring the cinematographer Robbie Mueller, who worked
Oh, sure.
extensively
Who
with Wim
passed away a few years
Wenders,
ago.
died a few years ago.
Yeah.
And he cut quite a few Jim Jarmusch films,
Yep.
and also films with Sarah Driver, who is Jim's partner.
Right.
Sarah's done a number of films, and I don't know if it's the way the industry works or sexism or whatever, but her films are not in general as well known as Jim's.
No, they're certainly not.
And anyway, we approached the editor, Jay Rabinowitz, who like Andy Westblum and some of these other people we've had, is really like a star editor, has just done
Hmm.
phenomenal work. And we were really excited that Jay wanted to come in and do this with us. And he said he wanted to do one of Sarah's films. And we did this one called When Pigs Fly.
Hmm.
So, I mean, Metrograph was basically like, oh, yeah, we're going to show a bunch of Sarah's films. We're going to show a bunch of Wim Wenders, a bunch of Jim Jarmusch. And so that gave us, we could say, well, out of these 9 films, the one we'd like to pair Jay with would be When
Right.
Pigs
There's a
Fly,
lot of convergence opportunities, in other
which
words.
is great. And that's a fascinating film she did from the early 90s with Alfred Molina's in it,
Oh,
Marianne Faithfull.
oh my. Yeah, I don't know
Great
if I've seen
film.
that one.
No, I hadn't seen it myself until we did it. And
Yeah.
we've ended up having with Sabine Hoffman in,
Yep.
obviously up in Woodstock all the time with one of the films she did with Rebecca
Yeah, I
Miller
know.
recently.
I know her. Yeah, she's a lovely
Um,
person. Hmm.
The Private Lives of Pippa Lee, which is a wonderful ensemble film, which I had not seen either
Have you had
myself.
on speaking of Sabine's Criambule?
No, we should, right? I
Yeah,
hear she's good. No,
she's
it's
wonderful.
we have a whole list of people we want to try to get. Um, and that kind of brings us to I guess that year our second season ended with sort of a Spike Lee twofer. We had Sam Pollard in maybe June, I think,
Hmm.
with a
Sam.
Spike Lee film, Four Little Girls.
Hmm.
Great
Yep.
film, the
Yep.
documentary. Sam cuts narrative and doc, but primarily doc, and of course is a great director now too of his own work. So we had Sam, and the following month we finally got around to Barry Alexander Brown with Do the Right Thing, and we
Hmm.
tried to schedule it on the hottest day in July that we could, and it was hot. And it was a great week because actually Spike had a street fair in Brooklyn on the street that they originally filmed it. Because
Wow.
I think when we showed Do the Right Thing, it was an anniversary year also, like it was
30 or so.
30 years or something.
Yeah.
So it was a really exciting night. And of course it was packed and it was hot outside, but air conditioned inside. And I, at this point, I can't even remember every single film we've done. What, um, where are we now? We're in November, right? Um,
Well, I think the big news
so
is
yeah, the
going
big news.
how that you can talk about how this what will likely be a very seminal event in December. I mean, you can talk about how that came about.
Yes, I should. Um, so what happened was one of our members, Philip Shopper, who's cut some great films. He said he had been in he had done some work with Elaine May,
Right.
and Elaine May, of course, back in the 50s and 60s, was part of a comedy duo with Mike Nichols, Nichols and May. They appeared on Broadway. They did record albums. They were on television.
Yeah.
They were huge, huge,
Records.
huge celebrities and records at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the equivalent would be today, but they were just huge stars. And then they both started moving into theater directing and movie directing. I guess what Mike Nichols' first film was, I think, Who's
Who's
Afraid
Afraid of
of
Virginia
Virginia
Woolf?
Woolf, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We were actually going to do Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf for our second appearance with Molly and Bobby a year ago, but the film forum had just shown it, so Metrograph didn't want to show something another theater had just had. So we ended up doing Working Girl,
Well, that's
which
another
was,
great one.
another great one. And we're going to hopefully have Bobby and Molly in the new year with a Roman Polanski film. We're hoping to do Chinatown.
I've
Which
heard of
doesn't
that
get
one.
screened that
Yeah.
often, but we might still end up doing Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf one of these days. So for Valentine's Day or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day. But so I mean, there we can count on them.
Yeah.
Um, so Philip Chopper had said, oh, and of course, after those glory days of them being a comedy duo, Mike Nichols started making all these films, and Elaine May started making films, writing and directing films. And
Try
her
to.
first
Yeah.
one was called A New Leaf,
A New
which
Leaf
she
with
actually
Walter
starred
Matthau.
in.
Yeah.
And but that was the beginning of a very contemptuous, is that a word?
Tempestuous.
Contentious,
Or
tempestuous career in terms of dealing with movie studios.
right. Right.
Lane's career as a movie director was mostly done at a time where if you made a movie, you made it with one of the studios. There wasn't the same independent scene that
No.
there is today. I mean, Cassavetes worked quite on his own a lot, but it wasn't like today where people just raised money and made
Right.
things or made something for $200,000. It's like if you wanted to make a movie, you had to go to Columbia, you had to go to Warner Brothers, one of these things, and you had to work with studio bosses. And Elaine has only made a few films, and every film she's made has been a protracted editing process and a series of fights with the studio. And she got a reputation for being a difficult director or a difficult woman in a way that Mike Nichols never did.
Well, yes, and there's no doubt that some of that was definitely a misogynist. For sure, she had
Yeah,
to overcome a lot of those obstacles, but she was
a lot.
also, I mean, to be fair, she was kind of like nuts about when she would do. I mean, she would shoot insane amount of stuff. She didn't know always what she was doing. I mean, she kind of learned on the job,
Yeah, yeah.
but she was also a genius.
Well, that's the thing. If you look at the films she did make or has made,
Yeah.
there's so much genius and originality in the films.
Absolutely, and
Uh,
groundbreaking. Yeah,
and then the second one was Heartbreak Kid, which
right.
she managed
Charles
to
Grodin.
cast her daughter, Jeannie Berlin, in. She had her daughter when she was only 14.
Right.
So they're close in age, and that was a phenomenal film starring Jeannie Berlin and Charles Grodin and Sybil Shepherd. Um,
Sybil Shepherd,
a
not to be
great, great
forgotten.
film.
Yeah, no, one
And
of my
then
favorites.
after that came Mikey and
Mikey and
Nicky.
Nicky. Yeah.
So we're going to show Mikey and Nicky, which is from the mid 70s. It stars Peter Falk and John Cassavetes. Um, I think there's a lot of people in the world who think Mikey and Nicky was actually Cassavetes' film because he's in it, and it has some of the same down and dirty crime milieu that you get in Cassavetes' films sometimes, like Killing of a Chinese Bookie. But in fact, it was written and directed by Elaine May. It's completely her movie, and it's one of the all-time greats. And so Phil said, I think we could have Elaine May as a guest if you'd like it. And she's 92 years old. She lives on the Upper West Side. And we thought, oh, Elaine May, that would be fantastic. And it took a little bit of doing, trying to schedule the right night, but we've got her booked on December 6th. I don't want to frustrate your listeners, but the show's been sold out for a long time. In fact, it's sold out in 30 minutes. The tickets went on sale about 2 weeks ago, and they went
Oh,
on sale
damn it.
like
I was gonna about to go on and buy a
five
ticket.
15. Yes, well, luckily a little bird found some tickets for you, Adam, and
Thank
we're
you.
very happy to have you as our guest. In fact, we've there's going to be quite a few journalists there
I'm sure.
from some big publications. We've heard. I can't reveal all of them, but you're not going to be the only journalist celebrity there. There will be
Celebrity. Who's
there'll be a
what, name
couple
one
more.
other?
Well, he Richard Brody is supposed to come from the New
Okay.
Yorker. Now that I've said that, I uh,
Right.
I hope he does
Well,
come. And the funny thing is, we've had this idea for the longest time about our series that this would be a fun sort of something for the New Yorker to write about, like in Talk of the Town. You know, that it's sort of like a club. You go every month, but it's not. It's a club anyone can participate in. You just
yeah,
buy a ticket.
right.
Um, Metrograph did do things a little differently this time. They decided to offer tickets to members first,
That's
and
the way
because
that's the correct step to go.
and because they
I
did it,
remember.
and members got the tickets. We
Yeah,
They also said we want to make sure that enough of the people from your organization ACE can come.
right.
And in case they're not members already, they said they allowed our ACE members to join Metrograph for free for a month so that they could get in on the deal. And hopefully, I think most of us in New York really are Metrograph members by now. It's just much more convenient. Um, so we've got Elaine May, uh, Mikey and Nicky, and the moderators will be Philip Shopper and Jeffrey Wolf. Jeffrey Wolf is a great editor who actually has been on several of our panels because well, we had a Dee Dee Allen night last year. Of course, she's long gone, but they had a series of films edited by Dee Dee Allen. In fact, they haven't done this too much. They have, having a series of films by editors, especially. I guess they've done it a few times with editors who are not alive anymore. Like they had Dee Dee Allen and they did Hal Ashby also.
Mm,
Both
mm,
some
mm.
films that Hal Ashby directed, but Hal Ashby actually cut quite a few films
Oh,
too.
right. Yeah,
For Norman Jewison,
right. And
he
produced
cut and
in
produced
the heat of the
and
night.
Heat of the Night and the Cincinnati Kid with
Oh,
so we had that with Steve McQueen. I'm trying to remember who our moderator. I think we had we had Nick Dawson on because he'd written a
sure.
book about Hal.
Hal,
So
that's right. I just
uh,
he's producing. Nick is producing a podcast for a filmmaker, and they pitched him to do this podcast, which was very nice. It was um a real pleasure actually, and it was nice that they reached out to me. I mean, I guess
no, it's great.
I'm always surprised.
No, it's really great, and it's wonderful that we've managed to have so many different kinds of guests on the show by now,
Yeah,
from all over. And I think word spreads among people. But
right.
we're gonna have a lot of. This is going to be a really fun night. Hearing Elaine and well, oh, Jeff, of course, Jeff Wolf was an assistant editor on Mikey and Nicky. And Jeff is in his 70s, so he was probably in his 20s or 30s when he did this as a young assistant editor. And there may even be some other people in the audience who worked on that film because it was cut here in New York,
Yeah.
largely
Wow.
shot here. Well, it was actually shot, I think, in Chicago. I'm not sure about that. I should know these things. But Jeff had appeared on the Dee Dee Allen night, which we actually had Slaughterhouse Five.
Hmm.
was the film, uh, and we had which was a George Roy Hill
Oh, I
project
didn't.
that he
Okay,
directed.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's really good. And we had
Okay.
George Roy Hill's son on, and we had several people who had worked on the film. Tom Fleischman, we even had, who's one of the world's great sound designers, who is Dee Dee's son.
Oh,
So
wow, I didn't know that.
we had
Okay.
like an incredible
It's
panel.
really just a fantastic. I guess New York City, man. It's just for especially for all these I don't know if you call them below the line or what's
Below
the
the line, or we call ourselves key creatives. You
key
know, you've got
creatives.
the
I
editor,
prefer
the
that. I prefer
production
that.
designer,
Yeah. But it's just
cinematographer.
but they're populate the city, it's
Oh, it's filled. Well, in fact, around the same time that we were starting our own series at Metrograph Ace Presents, Metrograph wanted to do a concurrent series that they call Film Crafts, and which would be focusing not just on editing but other aspects of making movies. And they've invited people. They invited my wife Judy Becker on, and the way
hmm
to do that, she's a designer. Judy presented three films that she had designed: Brokeback Mountain, I'm Not There, and We Need to Talk About Kevin. And in addition to these three films, which she talked about afterwards, they showed three films which had inspired her. I think one of them was Nick Rogue's Walkabout,
Wow.
and I think maybe Last Picture Show, perhaps.
hmm
I think that was one.
Well, I
And
need to get Judy on here and she can tell me herself.
she can. You should have her.
Oh,
She's got an amazing movie coming out in a month called The Brutalist, directed by
yeah,
Brady
that's a very
Burbank.
exciting, right, Rich?
It got a great reception at Venice. Brady won the Silver Lion for directing, and it's now been having some screenings for people, but it hasn't come out yet. It comes out in a few weeks. Great movie. I've seen it three times. I endorse it. But as for the series, yeah, the talent is out there, and you know, next year we don't know exactly what we're going to have. You know, running from January to June. Try to take the summer months off a little bit, give ourselves everybody a break, so they can go to the beach. But we proposed a whole bunch of films to Metrograph, and they're going to see how that works with their you know current
Programming.
programming. Like
Right.
maybe they're having a series of films about playing baseball or something like that, and that will go with something that someone has cut. Um, and that's what makes it actually really interesting. Like this year we had Dylan Tickner on, who is a great editor, cuts so many great films, and he's cut quite a few Paul Thomas Anderson films. And our first thought was, well, it'd be great to have one of the Paul Thomas Anderson Paul Thomas Anderson films he did. He did from Boogie Nights on to I think Phantom Thread. Uh, and but Metrograph was interesting. They said, no, we are going to be showing There Will Be Blood later in the month, but we'd like to do something different. How about The Town, directed by Ben Affleck, which
Mm,
Dylan also cut, which is a more of a genre piece, cops and robbers kind of piece, crime story.
right.
And very sort of different from, we don't have really any agenda with the films we show. I mean, some of them are
Well, it's
sort
all
of
about
art house
they're all
classics.
they're catalysts for conversations, correct?
Exactly. So they're all different kinds, but we hadn't really had anything like this. And that went really well. And then what
hmm
happened was Dylan had so much fun doing it. He said he'd love to do another. He Dylan is from LA, but he's here in New York right now because he's cutting The Bride for Maggie Gyllenhaal. And in fact, one thing which is helpful to us is New York State has this incredible tax credit for post production. Like
Mm,
if movies cut here, even if they're shot in other states or in California, but they cut here, they save big time on the
mm,
editors. This has helped me out personally because, like, Lulu Wang's The Farewell was produced partially by a New York company, Big Beach, but also by a Los Angeles company, Depth of Field. Lulu's from LA. Under normal circumstances, they would have cut The Farewell in LA, not New York, and they would have hired an LA director. I mean, LA editor, not me.
Right.
And 9 Days was the same way. Everyone connected with 9 Days. Ed Zanoda, Mandalay, Jason, Berman. They were all LA people, but we shot it in Salt Lake City because the very reasons to do that, and we cut it here in New York because it was the prudent thing for them financially. As a result, of course, Maggie Gyllenhaal lives in New York, so it makes sense why she'd be cutting The Bride here. But she brought Dylan in. Her editor on her previous film, The Lost Daughter, Alfonso Gonzalez, wasn't available at first, but he's actually joined the team, and he's in New York working on The Bride. And he ended up moderating a conversation with Dylan,
Hmm.
and he may come in later. We may have a surprise screening around Christmas of Carol, Todd Haynes' movie Carol. The Metrograph likes to show Carol
Did Judy
often.
work on that one?
Judy did do that. She
Yeah.
designed it, and Ed Lockman shot it. And
Oh, the great Ed
most
Lockman.
most years, Ed Lockman actually presents his own personal 35 millimeter print of Carol. I don't
Wow.
think they've scheduled that this year yet, but it may happen. And there may be another screening of Carol around Christmas. And if Alfonso Gonzalez, he's known in the business as Fonzie. If Fonzie's here, he may do a visit with us. And we ended up we oh I know I think I started to tell you that Dylan had such a fun time he wanted to do another one, and they did end up scheduling There Will Be Blood a few weeks ago,
Oh,
and we did There Will Be Blood. We
yeah.
did
What an
with Dylan,
incredible movie. Yeah.
and Alfonso Gonzalez was the moderator. I'm sorry if my conversation is a little all over the place today,
No,
Adam. I
but
guess that's usually like
it's
how it is. But
well,
I,
editing is your external practice, maybe,
well, I mean, the way I work and the way I think a lot of editors work is we throw a lot of things into a
Right.
timeline, and
Yeah.
then we look at it and we sort of see how these things relate to each other, and we come up with some order. But it starts out with chaos, and
Yeah. Well, it's good
from
chaos.
chaos you find something. Yeah. So, it's one of those exciting things. Like we have no idea what exactly the movies are going to be for the next 6 months in our series, but there's going to be one probably every single month. Uh,
Hmm.
that's the thing. It became so popular that right away we start. It was a monthly thing, and not only that, we have some of our editing colleagues in Los Angeles. Uh, they got quite jealous of our series. Like, how come you guys get to have all this fun with people? We have editors here too, and we said, well, we don't own a copyright on this idea. Ace Presents. You can do Ace Presents if you want. Just organize it yourself. And they did. They went to Vidiot's, which is this great art house
Where are they
in
doing it? Oh,
Vidiot's,
yeah,
which is in
videos,
Eagle
right.
Rock, and they've done three so far. They started with the legendary editor Carol Littleton, who cut E.T. among other things, and The Big Chill, and they started with I think The Big Chill with Carol Littleton, and then they just recently did Love and Basketball with Terilyn
Oh, it's a great one.
Shropshire,
Uh-huh.
and they had the Joy Luck Club with Maisie
Hmm.
Hoy. So they've been doing very well on the diversity level, better than us. Three women in a row for editing, which is a good example for our community.
But
Again,
then,
you should.
what'll happen, they'll run out, and then there'll be nothing but men for years. So,
Well, let's hope not.
yeah, no, let's hope not.
And but it's interesting. The movies they've shown they're a little more commercial than the ones we've had in New York. It sort of
Yeah,
represents the
that's
town. They're all
Hollywood.
wonderful movies, but
Right.
it's great.
But it represents, in a way, the
Has a
industry's
different feeling,
vibe to
which
it.
is good.
But it kind of makes sense on a certain level too, if you think about, the center, what New York is known for and what LA is known for.
Yeah,
There's lots of convergence and overlap and, commonalities as well. But there's also Hollywood and there's indie, and
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
we, you know, it makes
We
sense.
It does. We
And
are more of an indie town, I guess. Yeah,
yeah, or indie adjacent and that kind of things.
yeah.
So
And I guess our next market to break into would be London. They've got a lot of editors there. No one
Right.
there has approached us and said, and again, it's like the formula is really pretty easy. All they have to do is find a theater home that's into it,
Right.
propose some films,
Right. Ideally an art
convince
house.
convince the theater that they'll actually make money on it because they'll have a full
Well, the
house.
advantage there is they can show empirical data because of what you're doing.
Absolutely. Like I say, we've done about 25 of these now, and they've almost all sold out. And then
Yeah.
this one, they actually raised the price to $20, making
Hmm.
it a special event because it is special to have
It is a
film
special
there.
event, and
Um,
it's worth every dime.
so I guess what I would say to your listeners is if they miss out on this one, that's okay because we're going to have some wonderful things coming up throughout next year. You know, we'll have programming through at least June, maybe July, and then we'll start up again in September. Um, it's not really too much work doing this. You know, it's a lot of emails back and forth, and it's
Right.
a
No,
little
I
bit of
listen.
promotion, but they do most of the work. They sell the tickets, they collect the
Right.
money,
Right.
and we get to enjoy it.
Beautiful. Well, it's always such a I just enjoy having you on the regular, and it's just always really like fun to hear you talking about all your projects. You always bring so much um enthusiasm and good energy talking about these things, and your love and passion for film, really comes through, and it's refreshing. So thanks for
Well, thank you, and
coming on.
thanks for having me, and thank you. I know you just had me a couple months ago with Julia Loktev with our movie
Oh, right,
that
I
we had
forgot.
done, and
Well, yeah, no, that was great too, and I'm
that was so
always
much fun.
it's great to have. I mean, I wish there were more friends like yourself who would take such time to think of what I'm doing, and I mean, I can do it on my own. It's not a problem. I'm not complaining, but what a nice little perk, to have folks like yourself to think about like this vehicle because I think it can be a very positive experience.
Well, I think also, you know, community building is really important. I think we're all aware that if we don't support theaters like Metrograph and Film
Right.
Forum and
We
the
should not take any
Roxy,
of that for granted.
they
Yeah.
could just be gone
Right.
overnight.
Right. No, it's
Um,
it's a
and
miracle that there are if you live in New York City at one point there were probably many more, but you have the Metrograph. You also have Film Forum, which you mentioned before. You have Lincoln Center, and you have BAM in Fort Greene. You have I mean there just aren't, and I don't mean to ignore any smaller or film locations, but those are kind of some of the bigger art houses. But you don't really have too much else, unless I'm forgetting. Well, you do have the Firehouse Cinema
you got that for
over at
documentary.
DCTV.
But you know, here I'll tell you what's interesting. Above 60th Street on the on the east side, there's very few great theaters at all on the Upper East
right,
Side.
they've
On
all
the
disappeared.
upper, and there used to be many on the Upper
Yeah,
West Side. It is a desert compared to how it used to be. We've got film at Lincoln Center, which is great because they've got the Walter Reed and the two smaller
yeah,
theaters now. But other than that, you've got the AMC, which is good for the blockbusters, and there's like nothing else.
yeah.
But Ira Deutschman, who is a great
I love
hero to
him. Sure,
film
just saw him recently.
distribution, teaches at Columbia, he has put together a group of investors to buy the old Metro Theater, which is
On 100th Street,
900th
Broadway.
Street and Broadway, and they intend to open it as a 5 or 6 screen film center with a cafe and bookstore,
I didn't know this.
much like they don't have all their investors. So in fact, if anyone on your show wants to become an investor in this new Upper West Side art house with Ira Deutschman,
Well, I'm going to get Ira. I just
if
saw him at Woodstock.
if they
He
yeah.
was on a panel or two at Woodstock the last month, and I had I known that I would have grabbed him because he said hello, and I ended up moderating a Q&A with Paul Schrader.
Oh, that
So,
must have
so
been great. So
it
much
was
fun.
great. It was great. It
Well,
was fun.
and you see that's the fun thing. Like Paul Schrader is I don't know him. I've never had much of a real conversation with him. I've met him once or twice, but he's around New York a
Yeah.
lot, and
Right.
he's always at events and things. And it would be great if we have one of his films at Metrograph at some point in his
Absolutely. I'll come
series.
down for that one too.
And
And
we focus on the editor, but if the director is in town, wow, that would be fun to have Paul Schrader and one of his
oh my
editors.
God, yeah,
That'd be a great evening.
it will.
But yeah, Ira's getting this whole thing going, the Metro, and
Let's
I think
get. I'm gonna
he
get
need
Ira to come back on here
he
and
needs
talk
more
to him about that.
investor. Yeah, that would be a great show. But if anyone that listens to the show who wants to get involved with the Metro, they should contact you or me,
Right.
and we can
How do
connect. And
people get in
then
touch with you?
through my email, Michael Taylor 96 at Gmail.
Okay.
Have someone contact me and say, hey, I'd like to donate $10,000. They're doing the same kind of thing that the Film Forum did, I think. I believe they're having naming rights for seats and things like
Yeah.
that
Sure.
on the
Sure.
back. And they've
Right.
got a lot of plans, but it looks like it's really going to happen. And
God, that's amazing.
that's going to be a huge resource. And
I know,
I
especially for
haven't I've talked to Ira a little bit by email. We don't know each other that well. I sort of have said, you, you might want to try something like our Metrograph series up there too. There's all kinds of ways you can do live events. Maybe we'll even do an Ace Presents Uptown at some point. We don't want to take anything away from Metrograph, but it's nice to sort of bring
no,
things all
but
around
it's
town.
great to. It's so there's only a an appetite for this in your city, and there is a desert. I don't. There's no. This is not enough to be a competition to Metrograph. So
No,
it's
no,
fantastic.
no, exactly.
Um.
We all do it together. In fact, but
Yeah.
I want to make one final pitch to you. There's also this amazing cultural institution called, it's brand new. It's an old church. It's a deconsecrated, is how you say it. People,
Deconsecrated. Yeah.
people listening to the show must think I'm an idiot with language. Can't come up with any of the words. Anyway, it's right next to Barney Greengrass, if people know
Uh-huh.
where that is. And this group of people, including Mark Ruffalo and Matt Dillon, a number of people who live in that area, have helped turn this into a cultural institution, this church, and it's called the Center at West Park. Center at West Park, and in fact, they also call it the Center at West Park Film Center.
Oh.
And they've been having movies. They in the spring they had You Can Count on Me, Kenny Lonergan's movie, and for the panel they had Kenny Lonergan, Mark Ruffalo, Laura Linney, who were all
Yeah.
in the film, and they
Right.
sold out. They sold a lot of like tickets for $1,000 to donors and
Jesus
stuff like that.
Christ.
And then
To
they
raise
still,
money.
yeah, to raise money, and they still had a
Okay.
waiting list, and they did it a month later, and they had all the same people come back: Kenny Lonergan, Mark Ruffalo, Laura Linney. And I happened to script supervise that movie, so I came too. I wasn't on the panel, but I was in the audience. Anyway, we're doing one. I say we, I'm not involved with this, but Matt Dillon, who has directed two films. The first is City of Ghosts in Cambodia, with which stars James Caan, Stellan Skarsgård, Gerard Depardieu, Natasha McAlone, Rose Byrne. We did this movie in 2001 in Cambodia. I was the script supervisor. Matt stars in it. He directed it. He wrote it. They're going to show that December 14th. And unlike our Elaine May thing, tickets are still available. So if anyone
Oh my
listens to
God.
your show, and these are not selling for $1,000, these are for $20.
Okay. Well, that's more.
And they're going to have as the guest Matt Dillon with the legendary journalist Clyde Haberman,
Mm.
who is almost 80 years old, Pulitzer Prize, covered Vietnam. His daughter Maggie Haberman still writes for the Times.
Oh, sure.
So we're gonna have,
Notoriously.
and
Yeah.
Clyde Haberman is a great expert on
Amazing.
Southeast Asia. So that's my last pitch to your
I
folks.
love your
Go
pitches.
to the website, buy tickets to see City of Ghosts, December the 14th.
I may have to
It
reconsider living up here if this
it
continues
should
because it's
be it should be a fun night. I
no.
actually brought my mom into the city to see that second showing of You Can Count on Me. She's 94, and it was her first visit into New York since the pandemic, and it was it was quite a physical challenge for her to come in from Connecticut to
Hmm.
here to see the movie. But I
I
thought she would
bet.
enjoy the movie, and she loves seeing people. So
That's nice. Well,
anyway,
you're such a good son.
I
Oy vey.
I try I try my best, Adam. As long as she's around,
Yeah,
I want her to see stuff and be with her. And
I know. That's
I'm
wonderful.
I'm lucky because
She has her
you know so,
marbles. Yeah, that's great.
she does, to a certain degree, and a lot of my friends don't have any parents at this point. So
Yeah, myself
uh,
included.
so
Uh,
you're
yeah,
an orphan.
I'm an orphan, but
Um,
I had a great mom. And I only want my friends to enjoy that, as much as they can because I'm their friend. I'm not, thinking about myself in those cases. I see those images of you and your mom having, or your mother, I should say, having
yeah,
her
her lunches.
her lunches, and
Yeah, her
it always
lunch
makes me feel
series.
good. Makes me feel good.
Well, well,
So
the
there
thing
you
is,
go.
you always try to do something positive, and what happened is like that series started in the pandemic, and my mother fortunately had a home care person helping her during that time,
Right.
and that woman Dawn started taking pictures of my mom having lunch
Oh, I
to
see.
show me, and I started putting them on Facebook because I thought let's have some positive images and
Right.
not have it
We
just
need it
be
more than ever now. That's
and
for
now,
sure.
and I take them whenever she's now had hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and I have so many so-called friends on Facebook who I feel sort of know my mom, even though they've never actually met her. So it's a way
Right.
of sort of keeping her present. And
Right.
uh,
Right.
anyway, I have one more commercial pitch. I
Yeah.
because I know
Then I got
because
to call it.
and then I know
Yeah.
because I know you had Griffin Dunne on a little while ago, didn't you?
Absolutely did. Yes.
And you even did a panel discussion with him up in Massachusetts, I believe,
I
with
did,
Griffin.
yes, and at a great art house in Great Barrington.
Yeah. So anyway, Griffin stars in this new movie that I did
Yeah,
recently, which they just announced
Darren
yesterday.
Aronofsky's film,
No, it's
or
a
no,
different
no,
one.
no.
Noah Pritzker is the director,
Oh, okay,
and it's called. He may have done something with Darren. I'm not sure,
he
but this one.
did. Well, Griffin is in the new Darren Aronofsky film, but I'm
Oh, okay.
interrupting. Yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
this one is called Ex-Husbands, and it stars Griffin Dunne, Rosanna Arquette. So it's a
Wow.
reunion of them
Yeah, right. Oh, my God.
from After
After
Hours,
Hours,
and it's an
was that
After
edited
Hours
by Didi
reunion
Allen? Yeah.
edited by me, and it's Griffin Dunne, Rosanna Arquette, James Norton, wonderful English actor. People who've watched Happy Valley will know who James Norton is, and a terrific actor. And Grantchester, that's another English show, and a few other people. Richard Benjamin, the legendary
Oh
Richard
my
Benjamin,
God.
is in the film,
Wow. Wow.
and it's a great film about someone Griffin's age who's going through a divorce unhappily. He's becoming unhappily divorced. He doesn't really want to become divorced. And at the same time, his son is getting married and having a bachelor party in Tulum, Mexico. So Griffin decides to crash his son's bachelor party
Oh boy.
in Mexico, and hijinks ensue. Anyway, a company called Greenwich Entertainment that puts out
Oh,
some
nice.
really good films
Yeah.
is going to release it in the sometime next year,
Okay.
probably in the winter spring. 50 different markets, whatever that means, 50 cities, I guess.
Hmm.
It's a small film. It'll be a small release.
Can't wait.
We'll be in the theaters for a week or two, and probably, and then on streamers. And but
Well, count me in.
it's a
Count
really
me in.
enjoyable film. It's one of my favorites that I've done recently, and uh, it is good to support independent cinema in the movie theaters if you can,
Yes.
especially original stories that are not based on something else. Although there's nothing wrong with those too, but when you can get something that comes out of the brain of the director or out of the brain of the screenwriter and it's something brand new, it's great to support it because only if movies like this get unseen, if they don't sell any tickets, then it becomes harder and harder for them to get made, and they just will
Yes. Right.
cease. They will cease to exist. And
Right.
this film actually sort of falls into that category of the hopefully smart adult kind of entertainment like it's not really made for teenagers. Teenagers might
Yeah.
enjoy
Yeah.
it,
Right.
but it's
Right.
for people in their 30s and 40s and 50s who are going through these same sort of struggles that this
Well, it's
family
for
is.
adults
It's for adults, and that
of any age.
we used to have films like that all the
Right.
time,
As
but
you
now you get these blockbusters, or
right.
you get
Well, I see
children's
that
movies.
people want it all. It's just a matter of how they get out. It's it's harder and harder for theaters to show them, but they're clearly because of what you see on episodic um television streaming. There's still very much an appetite for narrative stories and character driven stories. So um but it's great to see them with other people. I mean, that's what we want to make sure continues.
That's
Um,
the idea, because
yeah,
it's like for vinyl went out of fashion for a while. People stopped buying records, but it's the most popular way to buy music now,
I
far
love it.
outselling every other
I'm up
form.
there because the quality of now it's my hobby.
Yeah, it's a great hobby, and the thing
Yeah,
is, this because it's vinyl, anyone can buy a record. I mean, they're more expensive than they used to, but
much more.
especially if you live in a place like Woodstock, I'll go to that little flea market out there every Sunday. I'll get all kinds of things for $4,
Right,
$5.
right.
They're great. You just clean them up a little bit, and they
No,
play
no,
fine.
there's a lot of vinyl shops and yeah, and stuff being released or re-released now with such a high quality pressings, and it's an exciting time if you're
Exactly.
an
And
audiophile.
but the thing is, that's something that we can support ourselves just by buying records or a
Right,
record player. If a movie theater goes out of business, you've got to raise a lot of capital to open up a movie theater. In other
yeah,
words, that's beyond our control. If audiences don't show up at the movie
right.
theaters, they're going to go away. So that's our sermon for today.
Thank you, thank you, Father Taylor.
Uh, Thank you,
um
Adam. Yeah, I thought we'd have a really like a little 5 minute mini chat today, but
never that never happens, and it probably never will, and I don't care that it I mean, I wouldn't want it to. So
no.
I will see you on Friday the 6th of
Yeah,
December with
yeah, you're
Elaine
gonna be
May
there.
and everybody, and then and I'm going to bug you about all the folks you mentioned so we can
Yeah,
start
I will. We'll start
make you
connecting
my
you.
co-host. And you are welcome to come on to any of those, by the way, if you
Oh,
want to
that's right. Oh no,
co-host.
you'll probably do fine without me.
Well, I didn't say
Yeah.
that, but I always enjoy any excuse to have you on. That's
All
all.
right. Well, it's great. Great fun, and I do look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Well,
And
have a
that's
great.
going to be a fun night.
It
But
is.
if for people who aren't able to make it because it's sold out, sadly, uh, keep checking the Metrograph schedule throughout the
Right.
next year, and you're going to
Right.
find lots of other events like this that will be
Right.
just as wonderful. So just keep checking the site. And I mean, the things that we do at Metrograph is just a tiny part of what that movie
Right.
theater is about. I mean, they have
Right.
great movies every single day.
Amazing
Um,
place. It's a
all
church.
right. It is a church. It's our church of cinema. We love it. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Michael
Adam.
Taylor,
This was a
ACE.
pleasure.
Same here.
Yep. See you soon. See you
Okay, give my best
in
to
a bit. In
Judy.
a bit. I will.
Okay.
She's in LA. She's coming back in a day or two for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, have a great holiday.
Okay. You too. Thanks holiday to you and to all of your fans, your fan base, Adam.
Listeners.
Listeners. Listener supported podcasts.
All right, pal.
Okay. Bye.
All right, love
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye. Okay.
Bye. Signing out.
Signing off.